Our gospel story today is from Mark 1:14 through 20 from the Common English Bible. After John was arrested, Jesus came into Galilee announcing God's good news, saying, "Now is the time. Here comes God's kingdom. Change your hearts and lives and trust this good news." As Jesus passed alongside the Galilee Sea, he saw two brothers, Simon and Andrew, throwing fishing nets into the sea where they were fishermen. "Come follow me," he said, "and I'll show you how to fish for people." Right away, they left their nets and followed him. After going a little farther, he saw James and John, Zebedee's sons, in their boat repairing fishing nets. At that very moment, he called them. They followed him, leaving their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired workers.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for that. Did you know that some scholars believe that the disciples of Jesus were young people? That those hairy old men you see in all the pious pictures are actually not appropriate or correct images of the disciples. That Jesus actually had a campus ministry thing going. He was calling out to and reaching out to 18 to 20-year-olds, and even had a couple of 14 or 15-year-olds, because maybe you remember the story of the disciple who was so young he didn't have a beard. Remember that? So the two brothers who were in the family fishing business run by their dad, James and John, they were working for their dad, and I imagine that like a lot of young people I know, or like the young person I used to be, they were a little bit restless. The brothers who left with Jesus, who simply dropped their nets and left, Simon and Andrew, they got up and walked away from a job they didn't enjoy, that felt empty to them, because Jesus had just told them about a different kind of a job that really intrigued them. He said, "Go, come with me. I will make you fishers of people." Well, I don't know about you, but when I was their age, I was hungry and restless and looking for adventure and to find new things. I wanted to be part of something big and something meaningful. By the time I was in college, I was definitely ready to learn transformative things. I wanted to break out of the old thinking. I wanted to find out new things. I wanted to travel more. I wanted to be a change agent, dream big dreams, and leave my parents' home. Find my own place, my own way. So it makes perfect sense to me to imagine that Simon and Andrew and James and John were young men, and they were looking for something new, something that inspired them and excited them enough to break out of their family routines and leave the parental business. They were ready for change. Change is, according to America's youth poet laureate, whose name is Amanda Gorman. A lot of us learned about it this past week. And she wrote in her inaugural poem for President Biden and Vice President Harris, she wrote that change is the birthright of our children. In fact, sociologists and students of our very divided culture right now in America, they say that this exact thing, change, is what is causing some of the deepest conflicts that tear at us as a nation right now. Some of us Americans do not like the changes that are happening all over our land. Our diversity, our new technologies, our changing industries, the new jobs, the growing cities, the opportunities for new ideas, food, culture, languages, and peoples mingling together, marrying each other. For some, all that sort of change is threatening. And yet, transformative change, especially change from our bitter, deadly, oppressive past, it may be scary, but it is absolutely essential. And yet, we know that there are people in our land who say, this is bad. Somebody's going to lose out. Now, I understand that I'm about to say a very large generalization, so please don't jump on me. I understand that I'm generalizing, but social scientists and commentators on our culture tell us that those who fear the most from losing out, those who fear change the most, are overwhelmingly older white men. And my old white husband says, yeah, he understands this about old white men. In a political and cultural world where Eurocentric white men dominated for a very, very long time, let's be fair, thousands of years, the changes happening now can be very upsetting. They feel the loss of power. They feel the threat of having to share wealth and a place at the table. They, some of them, do indeed fear the views of other worlds and other cultures. And they even fear the demand of others who say, we deserve respect. We claim a place at the table. You will listen to us. As our vice president has said, I am speaking. And the desperate cry of those people is for a return to some mythic past. They look back and back and back. I believe as we read through the Gospels, we see also that Jesus had plenty of run-ins with folks like that. We know he argued with the lawyers, the Pharisees, the Sadducees a lot. We know that each of these groups was seeking to preserve their traditions, of their culture, and their understanding of their religion against the huge waves of social change and moral upheaval and cultural upheaval that were a part of that world in which Jesus lived and walked and taught. So Jesus invited those 4 young men and a bunch of other, we believe, young men and women to dream of change, lots of change. He didn't invite these young people, to join any already existing groups. He was a change agent and a disruptor with a unique vision and a unique voice, founded in the past, but not clinging to the past and willing to critique the past for a different future. The place of women, the place of the poor, the place of the rich, the place of the Gentile, even the place of the Roman conqueror. All these places were changed by his teaching and his actions. It must have been really amazing and thrilling for the young people. And it must have been horrifying for their elders. I wonder if they had fights at the dinner table like we hear Americans are having today all across the land. And young people getting up and stomping off and saying, you just don't get it, do you? And leaving, just like the gospel story told us. They left home and followed Jesus, seeking a different world, a changed world, unlike the world of their elders, who, in the name of religion and power and security, stifled the dreams of those children. Those elders who, in the name of preserving the traditions of their people, would execute the change agent that their children were following, that their children emulated, that their children adored. One of the glories of this story of Jesus is that the change he lived for and died for did not die with him. In resurrection power, Jesus lives, and his changes live in us. We, who call ourselves the followers of Jesus, are also change agents. We follow Jesus, who welcomed the outcast, who healed all, taught freely and generously, who feasted with the rich and the poor, who taught the love of God with passion and with joy. A love, he said, from God that sees into our hearts, sees how broken we are, how busted we are, and loves us still. The love of God, Jesus taught, was a love that did not deny, exclude, enslave, or dominate. And that is a big change. It was change then, and it is still a big change today. Amanda wrote in her poem, Amanda Gorman, she wrote, "We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright." People, good people of Westminster, I ask you to make a vow to change the world so that the birthright of the children of all the world is change for the better. A better world that is built on justice and peace, on inclusion and welcome, joy and laughter and love. The world that Jesus calls us to. The world that God envisioned when God was active in the very beginning of creation. Like the young and the older friends of Jesus, I invite you to change the world. Amen.